The system's rigged, man, it's time.
Judge, we have two things to take up. We have basically a Daubert hearing on Lindsay Harris, our forensic expert, digital forensic expert. And then they have a motion to suppress that's connected to that. If parties agree to this, and Mr. Frank is fine with that, we could do the, I think when we put her on the stand and go through everything at one time, and then Ms. Frank is just going to do all the substantive evidence stuff, and I'm going to argue the law at the end, so if we could do that. After that, Judge, we do have some newly discovered evidence situation we need to address to the court after that.
Okay. All right, let's get started.
Do you guys want to open? We'll go ahead and call Lindsay Harris to the stand.
All right.
And Judge, obviously this testimony is for the court, so if there's anything you don't need me to cover or go over, it's digital forensics, so you can tell me to move on if you know about certain things.
All right.
If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Can you please introduce yourself to the court?
Lindsay Harris.
How are you employed?
I am the commander of the Intelligence Division at the Cherokee Sheriff's Office.
What does that mean? What do you do?
I currently supervise a unit of intelligence analysts who provide investigative support, digital forensic analysts who extract evidence from devices, and crime analysis.
Okay, can you scoot your chair forward a
Yes.
little bit? Thank you. How long have you been doing that for?
I've been at the Sheriff's Office approaching 7 years, and prior to that I was at a federally run drug task force with the DEA for 7 years.
So this is a unit, and you're the unit manager?
Correct.
Okay. What is your educational background?
I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice with a concentration in forensic behavioral sciences, and I have a master's degree in public administration.
Can you also tell the court about any certifications that you possess?
I am a certified criminal intelligence certified analyst with the International Association of Law Enforcement Intelligence Analysts, also known as IALEA. I am a certified cybercrime intelligence analyst, and I'm a real-time crime professional.
What did you have to do specifically to get all of those certifications?
It's a combination of work experience, education, and testing.
What was the hardest one to get?
Criminal intelligence certified analyst is the highest standard.
What did you have to do to get that?
So you have to have at least 5 to 7 years of experience in the field. You have to have, combined with education, continuing education, as well as a proctored exam, peer-reviewed essays.
You mentioned continuing education. What kind of continuing education do you obtain currently?
I continuously train on new technology. I've trained throughout my entire career in analysis and the technologies and the systems and the software we use.
Do you have to get continuing education for any of your certifications?
Yes, to be recertified for the criminal intelligence certified analyst, it's every 5 years, and for the cybercrime intelligence certification, it's every year.
What do you do on a daily basis?
So the job of an intelligence analyst essentially is a investigative support arm for investigators and agents and detectives, in which we look at a vast amount of data or records, and we take it in, whether using software or open source or law enforcement databases. We bring it into a format that's easily understandable and organized to quickly make determinations and suggestions on what the large amount of data really means.
What, you mentioned records. What kind of records are you looking at?
We look at all different types of records, from phone records, social media records, location records, financial documents.
Mostly digital.
Yes.
In digital format. You receive them in digital format, and then you run them through all of these programs you just talked about to actually be able to go through them.
Correct.
Is that a fair summary?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So part of these records are phone records.
Correct.
What do you usually, when an agency obtains phone records through a search warrant, what do you get from the phone company?
So there's various types based upon what is asked in a legal document by the investigator, but at the minimum you're getting the transaction of the record. So this would be, the date, the time, the direction of the call, the duration, what phone called the number, what one received the call. So that's simply the transaction. Is also called call detail records.
Do all of these records tend to come with location?
Again, it's specifically based upon what's written. So if you just ask simply for call detail records, you will not necessarily get a location tower. But if you get call detail records with cell site location, you are getting locations.
And is there also a way to get, well, tell the court about what a tower dump is.
So a tower dump is asking the physical cell tower, I need all the calls that registered through this tower during a given time frame, rather than call detail records, or I want all the calls to and from this telephone number.
So for a record, for cell records, CDRs is what we typically call them, right? Call detail records. Mm-hmm. You're giving the company the phone number, the subject number, and then they give you the records for that number.
Correct.
Tower dump is, here's all the calls that happened from all these numbers from this tower at this time.
Yes, you're asking the tower to tell you every transaction it took with every phone number based upon the carrier, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, etc.
In the phone records, do you sometimes get content of text messages?
Based upon, again, how the order is written. Some companies do, some companies preserve that data for a short amount of time, others do not.
Okay, and then do you also deal with cell phone extractions?
Yes.
Okay, and Judge, do I need to go into what a cell phone extraction is with her? Okay. How do you analyze or go through an extraction of cell phone digitally?
So after the phone is dumped, we call it, or extracted, the evidence, it's placed into a report of some sort that is decoded from the technology that extracts that information. And these reports are given in various formats. There's something called Cellbrite reports. That's the actual system that extracts the data, and it gives us a readable report. You can also get a PDF version, an Excel version, and it's simply a report of the contents of the device.
Okay. So I want to next go to, we had geofence records in this case. What are geofence records?
So the geofence is when you ask a company, specifically Google is a very common one, given an area of virtual fence, a geographic virtual fence that you put 4 coordinates on a map and connect them and say, within this area, I would like to know every device that was running some sort of technology based upon location in that area. Seclude all the other area, I'm just looking at this area.
And then when you get a return from that request, what does that look like?
Every company has a different format, hence why we need to use the software we do to translate the different types. But in particular, the Google geofence comes in an Excel type format.
What do you do with that Excel spreadsheet when you're looking at these records? What do you do with that spreadsheet?
So I always overlook the raw record, I call it. That's what comes from the company in, again, different formats, but a Google geofence usually comes in that Excel format that shows a date, a time, a latitude and a longitude, and then a radius of the most accurate, likely area that the device, the handset, is located within the parameters.
So the information that you received is from a device?
Yes, so we talked about call detail records and cell tower information. So that's network based. That's based on the phone carriers. You're asking Verizon or T-Mobile to give you information based upon the network. Whereas the Google geofence, you're asking the provider to give you handset based precision location. So it's not network based. It's not based upon technically making a phone call or receiving a text message. It's based upon the location services of that device.
Like if you had a GPS in your car, like a GPS device.
Correct. Location services on your device.
Okay. Okay, so then in this, and I'm kind of just narrowing it down in this case, we had general Google records for certain Google accounts. When we obtained those records, what did those look like?
So those records were sent based upon knowing an email address that was Gmail or Google's. And those records were all encompassing based upon the time frame of the legal document of that account. The geofence is, again, based upon the geographic virtual fence. So only devices within that area versus all the information for a certain Google account.
In the Google account, or in the Google returns for this case, were there also location
Correct.
services?
Yes, there were.
Included. And so the locations that were included in the geofence return, were they duplicated in that Google return for the certain Google accounts?
Yes, if the Google account was in the area of the geofence, it would have been duplicated within the geofence in the Google returns.
Okay. Okay, so when you go through all of these records, how is it that, let's pick one as an example and tell the court how it is that you would look through the contents of that record as an analyst?
Pick one. Okay, call detail records. They come in a format that usually the time zone is in something other than Eastern, where we are, and it's in a format that's very difficult to decipher. So we use a software called PenLink, or there's various other softwares as well, that ingest these records and decodes them in a way that we can look at the information and analyze it in a understandable format.
The records, do they come as like Excel spreadsheets, the raw records?
So every company, again, is a little different. Some come as CSV, which is similar to an Excel document. Some come as text documents. Some come as PDFs.
Okay. So I want to talk about how you apply this, how you apply your experience and your certificates and all of your knowledge when you're analyzing these. The strategies that you use and procedures that you use to go through all of the records we've just talked about. Is that something that is widely accepted in other jurisdictions?
Yes, I have done this type of work with records, phone records, and other types of records throughout my career in many other jurisdictions, and federal and state and local court as well.
The way that you have looked through records on all of your cases, is it widely accepted in the digital forensics field, the way that you analyze records?
Yes.
How is it that you know that?
Well, I have a group of analysts that works alongside me here in Cherokee County, as well as partnerships with other agencies and jurisdictions, and we are all constantly corresponding and learning from one another. And technology is always evolving, so sometimes a company or a new type of app comes along, and we'll receive records for it, and we'll bounce ideas off of one another, and we'll say, hey, how are you doing this with your records? Or it's very common in a criminal investigation to receive records of any type.
The programs that you use, depending on what records you're analyzing, can you talk a little bit about what certain programs you use, and if those are, I'm trying to think of the terminology because I don't know it as good as you do, but are they software programs that you have to privately purchase, or can you get them online as a regular layperson user? Can you kind of walk through the records specifically that we've used in this case, and what programs you use to look through them for each one?
Sure. So since the beginning of my career, almost 15 years ago, I've used a system called PenLink. It is a privately contracted, bought and paid for government software, and it is very widely used in the arena of analysis. And I mean, there's various other softwares, but for the ingestion of records, we use PenLink.
Is it similar to Cellhawk? I know a lot of people know about Cellhawk.
It is.
Similar to that?
It is.
And then what about Cellebrite?
Yes, Cellebrite is one of the main softwares used for extracting information from devices.
Now, when you have coordinates from a geofence search warrant return, what can you put that information into? What kind of software?
Well, the way it returns and it's readable, you ultimately can look at it and say, well, I understand that that's a latitude and that's a longitude. And you can take those coordinates and you can map them on Google Maps, or you can ingest it into a software as such, and it will map it for you.
And what about CDRs, like cell phone call detail records? Are some of them just incoming, outgoing, readable, like a geofence coordinates are?
They're readable. It might take some time to convert time zones again or understand how they abbreviate certain things, but most records also come with a key that you can decipher the records.
Right, like a PDF from the company.
Yeah, an
Like,
explanation.
here's what each field means.
Correct.
And when you run your records through software programs, do you then go back and verify with the raw records, with the raw
Yes.
data?
Absolutely. I always spot check my records. The system's very auditable. You can add in a column that says call number, and then you can look back on your PDF or your Excel, and it's going to give you the exact row or column they pulled that record from, and you can look straight across, and I can add in something that's called provider time. If my time zones were converted, it will show me the time that's on my raw record versus the time they converted, and I can say, yes, for sure this was correctly converted.
Now you looked at the records in this case, State versus Melody Farris, right?
Yes.
Which included phone records for several users, so CDRs as we've been calling them.
Yes.
Extractions
Yes.
through either PenLink or Cellebrite or what, I don't know if PenLink does phone, I don't know. And then the geofence coordinate return, but then also Google returns, so the actual records that I assume Detective Hayes or somebody had submitted a search warrant to Google, and they returned Gary Ferris's email address with whatever it was that Google had on record for him.
That's correct.
So if he had a Google Photos account, like a backup cloud account, that came back. So it just depends on what the user uses, right?
It also depends on what these companies store.
And what's asked for in the search warrant.
Absolutely.
Okay. And you put together a presentation after looking through most of these records, almost all of these records, to help the jury go through the timeline of the 2nd through the 5th of July of 2018.
I did.
Okay. And will that assist and help the jury understand those records?
That is the goal.
That is the goal. And does that presentation, are those facts and the data within it, are they sufficient, or did you verify them from the raw data?
Yes.
And putting together this presentation, all of those methods that you just described that are reliable and widely accepted within the community. Oh, I'm sorry.
I said something.
Did you use those to put this presentation together?
Yes.
We're going to talk about that in a minute, about leaving your phone there and walking off without it.
And then you applied all of those principles and methods reliably to put this presentation together.
I did.
Okay, Ms. Harris, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Weaver because I'm not quite sure where we're going to go from here. So,
This is the witness jar. We're going to try to get this report that's attached to the exhibit to the motion.
That's correct, Judge. That's the exhibit.
which report?
There was, Your Honor, I
The
think.
exhibit
Oh,
to
the
Mr.
whole thing.
Weed.
Yes.
And I'm afraid you guys filed
And
supplemental.
I guess let me ask, well, before you get started, Mr. Boop,
Not filed.
the we're talking about the whole. There's a bunch of what looks to me like a demonstrative exhibit
Correct.
that goes through and correlates various conversations and phone calls and text messages back and forth between various folks. Then there are a series of other reports at the end with
I can,
Data
if you
points.
would like, Judge, I can go through right now with Ms. Harris about the last kind of the tables.
right. That tables is what I was.
Sure. I can,
Yeah.
before Mr. Weaver starts, I can kind of go through.
Okay. Let's do that a little bit, and
Sure.
then
Okay.
this may require some back and forth, and to the extent that it does, that's fine. We can break it up into logical chunks. It's fine.
Ms. Harris, at the end of that presentation, and kind of within it, you compiled some numbers for certain data within Ms. Ferris's and Mr. Barton's phones. Can you tell the court how you did that?
Sure. So those numbers, we're talking about the blocks, large numbers.
Yeah, first let's start with, yes,
Okay.
the calls between Melody Farris and Rusty Barton.
So we received call detail records for both.
That's not really what this is about.
Okay.
So that's something that's just call times. Anybody can add that up. I don't think an
Okay.
expert would be.
Oh.
I'm talking about the maps that she's created
Oh.
with the radius, the circular radius.
Oh, the geofence.
The geofence. Yes, that's what this whole motion is about.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay.
Well, the activity and the steps.
And this, yes, and those.
Okay, so we'll go. We kind of already talked about the geofence. What Mr. Weaver is referring to is the coordinates that we were just talking about. Can you tell the court how you mapped that coordinate? Those coordinates for the geofence clips that you put in your presentation.
So the geofence returns show a latitude and a longitude, and they show a certainty marker or a radius, and it's in meters. So the latitude and longitude can be plotted on a map, and Google states their certainty, if they say 10 meters, they are giving you a 10-meter certainty that in the middle of that latitude and longitude with 10 meters around it, that device, that handset is in that area.
And so how did you plot
So
that data?
So the geofence data, the Excel spreadsheet, was ingested into my software Penlink, and it takes the coordinates and it places it on a map, and it draws a circle around it with the meters in which the record shows. Now, as I always fact check, I as well will go to Google Earth and I will plot the latitude and longitude on a map, and I will take the measure tool and I will draw a circle from the point, and I will do 11 meters out, 10 meters out, 400 meters out, whatever the record says.
For the activity, you tell the court how you looked at Ms. Farris's activity within her phone.
So within the data that was extracted from the device, there was a section called activity sensor data, which is under the application in the iPhone called Health. And I by hand took the information, the data that was in the Cellbrite report from the contents of the phone, and I manually graphed the distance in meters that were given in the Cellbrite report and the steps simply into an Excel graph.
And that's it?
That's all I did.
Okay. Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Are you wanting to ask questions now?
You go ahead and then if there's something.
Could we switch over to the Elmo? Trust me that the irony is not lost that I'm talking to a criminal intelligence data analyst, and I'm going to be using analog technology. Believe it's on. Okay. Blue light's on. Okay. Hey, and all I'm doing is just kind of the raw data. I'm gonna go ahead. I mean, you've seen it, but take a look. Okay, so my name is John Luke Weaver, and I represent Melody Farris. So the first document I want to show you, do you object to me omitting any of these?
No, not at all.
Would be Harris 2.
No.
I've got to zoom out.
No.
Just move it.
Top document, now top document, now zoom in.
Okay. All right, I'm showing you what is marked as Defense Exhibit Harris 2. What is this?
So there are 3 phases of a Google geofence
Okay.
that have to be, can be done. So phase 1, you ask Google, based upon the 4 points on a map that I've drawn, my virtual fence, I want to know all the devices within here. That's called phase 1. That's the response you get right here.
So what is this? What are these
So
numbers?
Google calls this an obfuscated ID, because Google doesn't want to give you anything that you might not need. So they mask any type of identifier for us to say, I know for a fact this phone is here now. So Google is telling us there are 3 devices within the geographic fence, virtual fence that we drew within that fence. So then you decide, do I want to do phase 2? Now I know I have 3 devices.
Okay.
So phase 2, you write another legal document and you say, now I want to know the locations outside of the fence of these 3 devices. These devices remain masked, these, like you see, these numerics that we can't tell what it is, until phase 3, when you decide, based upon looking at the locations of these 3 devices in the totality, I've decided 1, 2, 3, or none are relevant to my investigation. Therefore, I need to know the identifiers of the device.
Okay. So now I'm going to show you Defense Exhibit Harris 1. What is this?
So this can be one of 2 things. This could either be the subscriber that was given in return of the Gmail records request, or this could be phase 3 of the geofence request. This is simply the subscriber information for a device in the name of Gary Farris.
Okay. Now I'm going to show you what is marked as Defense Exhibit Harris 3. What is this?
So if you remember the document you showed me first, that device ID, the 1894125 at the end there, that is one of those obfuscated IDs that Google provides. This is the result of phase 2 of the geofence. So this is giving me all the locations in the given time frame for this device ID. This is one of the 3 devices that went to phase, I can say, this is one of the 3 devices in phase 1 that was in the virtual geofence. Phase 2 was done on this device ID, which provided these latitude and longitudes with the date and time in phase 2.
Okay, so in layman's terms, this is the locates from Google
This
of
is,
Gary Farris's phone
I would
device.
So I would have to match that device ID to phase 3 to make sure that that device ID is the one Gary Farris is.
But presumptively it is.
This looks like a return of a geofence, correct?
Okay, this is what you did. This was the raw data that you took and you put into, I believe it was the PenLink program.
I did use PenLink, yes.
All right, so now you didn't just sit here and draw. So you created an image. That's what the point of this motion is about. You created an image circling where Gary Farris's phone was and when that was, right?
Correct, based upon these records.
Based upon these records.
Yes.
But you ingested this data, this raw data, into a proprietary program, correct?
That is correct, and I also did use open source to fact check it.
What do you mean open source?
I could go to Google Earth or Google Maps, and I could put in the latitude you see there in the column latitude, the longitude, and I could use the measuring tool on Google Earth, and the maps display radius. That's showing you 10 meters within that latitude and longitude. And that's where you get that circle on the map.
Okay. So let's talk about how PenLink works, this program.
Sure.
Can you tell me about it, how it works?
Yes. So PenLink ultimately is a software that ingests records from various sources, as we talked about, and it just makes it easily readable. So it'll take this Excel document, whatever this is, and it'll put it into tables that show, the same thing, your target ID, your date, time, duration. Here we don't have duration, but your latitude, longitude, and then your meters of certainty.
Has Google approved using PenLink software for their information?
I don't know that answer. It is widely used for geofences.
Okay. How do you know that?
I've used it throughout my career many, many times.
You've used it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Is there other softwares?
I'm not sure. I don't use CellHawk. I know that's another widely used software. I don't know if it takes in geofence. I know it does phone records.
All right. So let's talk about there's different types of geofences. So if you go to Verizon's, web page, you're going to see on there there's passive and there's active geofences and things like that. What is that? What's the difference?
I don't have any knowledge of a Verizon geofence. I know
What's a Verizon phone?
that's the network carrier.
Okay.
So that's network based. That's cell tower based.
Right.
Geofence is handset based. It's the precision location of the device based upon the location services.
Where are those signals going to? They're going to cell phone towers, correct?
Applications. You have the option to opt into location services on your device.
Absolutely, yes.
So that's where that's coming from. GPS, Wi-Fi, or cell towers. Those are your three options.
Okay, so what evidence do you have that this was using GPS?
So this is the geofence return. In the Google return, there's a column here that says source, and it has three options as Wi-Fi.
But not this document.
So this is I believe phase 2 of the geofence.
Okay. But you used another document that said,
So the Google return
okay,
for the Gmail account on the subscriber you showed me is the same records that are in the geofence for the ID of Gary's phone. So within the Gmail return,
did it look something like this?
it would look more like records.
Okay.
That looks like a document.
A letter from Google.
But there is a column that states, I don't know the exact terminology, but it determines if it was a Wi-Fi signal, a cell tower signal, or a GPS signal.
So what signal was used in this case?
They were all three.
All three.
Yes,
But wouldn't they give different locations?
they do. So cell towers are far or wide because the cell tower's range can be 3 to 5 miles based upon urban, rural, the amount of activity the cell tower is seeing. Wi-Fi is obviously based upon your Wi-Fi location, your distance to the router. GPS is usually your best precision location because it's based upon the GPS of the device.
Okay, so what was used in this case?
All three were in the records.
All right, so you took all three records and kind of came up with your own number, yes? Or the PinLink software did that?
The records give me that data. I did not do anything different than what the records show.
Right, but what I'm saying is you've got this variability over here. Map display radius in meters,
Correct.
right?
Absolutely.
And so if I get on my phone right now and I want to look at anybody on my Find a Friends, then sometimes there's a big circle, sometimes there's a little circle.
Mm-hmm.
So did you took all three types, cell phone, GPS, and Wi-Fi, presumptively,
Sure.
to come up with this number, yes?
No. So as you see here, 81, 50, 10, 68, in my maps you'll see there, they vary based upon that number. So sometimes there's a 10 meter, sometimes there's a 400 meter, sometimes there's 20 meters. It's
Yes.
based upon what the record says.
Yes, ma'am. But what I'm saying is, and I'll do the best I can. Again, I'm an analog person living in a digital world, so sometimes it's hard for me to ask this question.
Sure.
But you have taken three different types of data to create these numbers. Yes? The radius numbers, ma'am.
No, sir. I didn't create any number. The number is given to me
It's given to you by Google.
by Google. So sometimes it says Wi-Fi and it gives 800 meters. The next record could say GPS and it gives me 10 meters.
Right.
So I don't add those together if that's what you're saying. I simply
Does
map.
the PinLink technology do that? Or?
No, nothing's adding together. It's simply based on the record itself, the row. I can map each row of records. Now, those might overlap, but you could show that as well.
Well, what I'm saying is, they take these different versions, the cell phone mapping, the GPS mapping, the Wi-Fi, do they take all of that to create this radius? Google, do they do that?
Absolutely not.
Where does it come from?
They read the record that's provided from the company.
Okay, so Google just spits out a number and says, maps display radius 81 meters, and that's it.
Google provides us that information, absolutely.
But we don't know how they create that information, right? You just trust it. You just trust it because it's Google?
Google gives explanations of how they find their precision location.
Well, can you explain it? You're an expert in this field.
They do three different things based upon the device has to have three different types of things. Location services must be turned on. Obviously, there must be a Google account or an application running Google somewhere in the background. Now, obviously, Android phones are Google phones. So those phones are going to have, with location services on, far more data than an iPhone, which is run by Apple.
Okay.
It comes down to the user having location services on. The different information you get based upon if your photos are going to be uploaded is, again, based upon the user's settings. Did they choose to have their photos backing up to their Google Cloud.
Okay. But you didn't create this document, obviously it came from.
Absolutely. This is the raw record from the provider.
Right. So what did the PinLink software do for you?
Simply reads this. Exactly this.
It reads it. I thought you could read this.
I can read, and I did. And I did map this also in Google Earth.
All right. So you use Google Earth, you use the PinLink software, and then you just did it yourself, correct?
I did it myself through using Google Earth, yes.
Through using Google Earth.
It-
So you checked Google with Google.
Absolutely.
Okay. What about Yahoo Maps? Did you try that?
And now, you know, I'm a Google person, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, it might be a good idea to verify Google with Yahoo. Just a thought. But anyway, what I want to know is, so then you drew the map that you've presented in your report, yes?
Yes,
You took a Google map,
yes.
and then you took the pinpoint and you drew a circle of what you say is 11 meters or however many meters,
Correct.
because there was multiple versions of this.
Yes.
And you did it through the times, correct?
Yes, based upon, times, dates,
Okay. And that's how you did that.
yes.
All right. Tell me, and here's my question. You know, we got this report on October the 4th, your report. How long have you been working on this case?
It's been a while.
So I got to ask, how come you...
Did you get a report? When did you get it?
October 4th. How long, you've been working on it a while. Can you tell me how long?
I mean, over the course of 6 years, it's been different types of work I've done on this case. You know, I essentially started with just phone records, just mapping phone records and identifying users of phones as I could. You know, as more records were given and I was asked to assist in more ways, so I did end up mapping geofence later, mapping Google later. But, you know, it's been fluid, and I've created lots of different versions of maps and records for this case.
But you got this report to us that's got all the messages and the timelines and everything in it after the trial started. Why?
I don't know why. I gave my work product to the investigative team.
When did you turn that in?
So things were changing as we were learning new things, and
Just answer the question.
yeah, I honestly, I'd have to. I think I gave it October 2nd or.
Okay, so nonetheless, still not on September the 23rd, which would have been 10 days prior to trial.
I don't believe the document was done at that time.
You weren't finished with your
No.
work. Okay. So definitely you say you got it finished by October 2nd, which was the first day we were striking the jury in this case. Nonetheless, you say October 2nd.
I believe that's when I gave it to the investigator.
Okay. All right. And why did it take you so long?
So a lot of records. So I had to go through lots of phones, lots of records, and ultimately, again, to simplify the complex takes a long time.
It does, doesn't it?
Yes.
But wouldn't you think that you should get that report to us sooner so that we could then turn it over to an expert to check your work?
I got it when I got it done.
You got it done when you got it done. Let's talk about the activity sensor data that you've noted. Let's go back through that.
Sure.
How'd you get to it? Because, well, let me stop, and I've had a thought. You noted something that you got from Apple in one of your slides regarding the activity data, about like how you equivalate one flight, things like that. Could you tell the judge about that?
Yeah,
I
if you
will.
don't mind.
Michael, do you have a copy? Just we're just looking for a slide where she references Apple data. Yes. Yes.
Ask me that.
The definitions of steps. Did you not get that? Something from Apple. You referenced some information you received from Apple in your report. I'll find it in a minute, but if that triggers your memory.
Well, so in analyzing the health data, I was curious onto how they calculate distance and steps. So if you merely go to your health data, your health app on your iPhone, it gives a description of how Apple calculates steps and flights and distance.
I think it was cut off in the criminal. That's why. But you got it from the app itself.
Yes, absolutely. So in the health app, it tells you a flight is equal to
Your app or on her app?
any Apple phone.
Well,
It's
what
standard.
about, okay, but what about this? So this was over 6.5 years ago.
Correct.
Maybe has the technology changed? Maybe they've updated the app and it might be different now?
So there's definitely enhancements today than there
Sure.
were in 2018, but steps, distance, and flights were in the health app in 2018. They're still in the health app now. Now you get a lot more stuff as like energy, calories, all these other things.
Right. But what I'm saying is maybe they've changed their standard base amount for a flight. That may have changed at some point in the last 6.5 years. You don't know, correct?
I actually did reach out to Apple as well, and Apple provided me their technology they have in the phone.
Tell me about that. Tell
They
me about
use-
reaching out to Apple.
They use accelerometers, gyroscopes, pedometers. You know, I'm not at all an expert on the technology behind the scenes of a phone, what's in it that's measuring, but Apple was able to tell me that their precision, location, and calculation is based upon these certain measured techniques.
And proprietary to Apple that they don't share with anyone.
Correct.
Correct.
And did you try to use any kind of pin link or open source software to try to verify this information?
This information I used directly from the Cellbrite report.
So going back to this radius, like you really can't tell if there's plus or minus more than the 81. You're just trusting that information from Google.
Yeah, they provided in the record return what maps display radius and meters means, and it's the certainty.
But that's from them. That's their proprietary information. That's it.
Yes, all I can deal is with the records I'm given.
And there's no way to check that, right?
To check how they know it's 30 meters or 10 meters?
Yes, ma'am.
It's based upon the record they gave. Correct.
Because you don't work for Google and you can't say how accurate that is. You really can't.
Yeah, I just interpreted the records.
That's all I have, Judge. And if I didn't already, I would admit Defense Exhibit Harris 3, 2, and 1.
Well, all right.
Just a couple of follow-ups.
All right, go ahead. Sure, I have some.
Yes. Did you do any physical examinations of anything, of actual devices?
I did not.
Just records?
Correct.
Any scientific experiments with this stuff? So I think you just stated that you just took the records and then interpreted the records.
That's correct.
We'll just go ahead.
on you, Judge. Thanks.
Judge, we're
You
gonna wait and see
testified,
We're gonna wait to see what you do.
have you testified in court about this technology previously?
I have testified about call detail records and cell tower locations. I have not testified on Google geofence.
Right. Are you aware, if anyone has, in your community?
Yes, absolutely.
Where?
In specific areas?
Yeah.
I can't give you specifics, but Google
Have you
geofence.
have you been in trainings in which they have said,
You were saying is the certainty of the location. So when you map it, it may show a wide radius. Like here in one of the entries, we'll say on the 3rd at 2255, it's like 149.
Correct.
So then when you map that and it shows 149 meters, you understand, and what would your testimony be about the certainty of the location of that? That phone could be anywhere in that radius.
Anywhere within that radius.
That's your understanding of that radius.
Absolutely.
And so if it's an 11-meter radius, you just know that the signal's what, tighter?
Correct.
Because the certainty of the location of the phone is a smaller area.
Correct.
Is that what you understand that?
It is.
Okay. I don't know if that helped at all, Judge. But also depends on how strong, I imagine it would depend on how strong the Wi-Fi signal is, and maybe if it's a weaker signal, and this is just me kind of pontificating.
fluctuations in the radio waves based upon
Well,
the
and
weather?
so then the radius will get wider, and the location may be anywhere in that radius.
Absolutely.
So it could be based upon the strength of the signal. If the signal is super strong, maybe a tighter radius.
Correct.
I'm sorry. I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
I know we're all asking questions.
You can ask a question, Mr. Reader.
I know this is a valid technology question. The device was for Mr. Farris was 18946844125, correct?
No.
No. What was his device number?
Based upon what Ms. Frankish just looked at, 211181353.
1353 is his.
starting halfway down the
Addison's 4125.
So that's where we're using Wi-Fi, GPS. It's just Wi-Fi and GPS. Do we have any cell phone tower data on that for these averages?
In the records I'm looking at, it just says Wi-Fi and GPS.
Okay. That was my question.
All right, go
I
ahead.
know the court was asking questions regarding this, but for your map that you created, did you just cherry picked and you didn't use Wi-Fi? You used just the GPS coordinates,
Exactly. It's certain ones were highlighted in that.
right? But you just disregarded the Wi-Fi because it was a much bigger average and you didn't like that, right?
I mapped all at time. I mapped everything in its entirety, but for the simplicity of the presentation, certain things were chosen. For,
And you just chose GPS.
if that's what was chosen, yes. I mean, some of these Wi-Fi are very close range too. You have 16 meters, 31 meters.
But they vary and they change rapidly. I mean,
Absolutely.
we're talking all of a sudden one of them is 1,199 meters. That's a lot. I mean, what is that, like a half a mile, something like that?
It's large.
Would it be helpful, Judge, if I walked through that slide with the court and the defense?
Whatever you want to do, sure.
Well, I guess I'll just ask Ms. Harris this.
If you have a slide.
I don't have the thing.
Bigger issue is, all right, so we have, go ahead.
Well,
We have to deal with the technology and then we have to deal with the timing.
so the points that we mapped for Mr. Farris, were they narrowed down by after he was last seen by a human
Yes.
and then forward?
Yes.
So it was based on timing,
Correct.
to figure out his movement, where he was, what he was doing. Maybe not what he was doing. We don't know what he was doing. But at one point, he goes to a restaurant and comes home. So we assume he went to dinner. But that was just within the time frame that I asked you to look into.
Correct.
Okay. I mean, she can map all the time if you would like her to.
All right, anything else clear?
No, just argument.
Judge, you want to go into you want to do the Daubert side of it first, or go into the motion to press the time? It's all.
I mean, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think y'all need to address all that because there's one. We have the
Let's just put the project dates on it. Judge, may we have Ms. Harris just step outside?
sure.
Okay, Ms. Harris, you're on call. We may have to call you back.
So you have another witness that's going to explain the technology.
I'm sorry?
You have another. You're going to have another witness that's going to testify on the Daubert side as to the
Oh, no.
reliability,
It was
or
That's
just
all
argue.
good.
Huh?
That's it.
Right. That's
That's
what
right.
That's what I understood. So you're just
Yes.
wanting her to step out during an argument.
all,
Yes, and we also may need her again, Judge, if you need more evidence on some things. We understand the timing argument of the defense, Judge, and we understand they have the arguments they're going to make on that, and they would also explain to the court that we did not have, no one was challenging Daubert in this case, and I understand they're connected, so. Roughly what our position is going to be is that, you will see, is we turned over all this data and this information as original evidence, phone records and things like that, and what Ms. Harris is doing is she is taking the raw original evidence and she's putting it into a demonstrative for us. So it's not under the statute 1716-4. It's not going to be scientific or mental report or some type of a physical examination of the device or something like that. So they're all related, but we're just asking them to keep it open so we can go into and then see where we end up if we need more evidence.
I just wanted to make a brief record about when we gave
Timeline. Yeah. Go
certain
ahead.
things
Go
and
ahead.
what
You
we
can
gave.
you can state in your
So,
place that information. Or
In 2020,
say it in your place, and if we need to follow up
sure.
with some other.
February 6, 2020, they were provided the cell phone tower records, which are the tower dumps that she mentioned. They did do tower dumps, and so Ms. Harris would essentially testify certain numbers didn't come up in the dumps. Doesn't mean they weren't around, just means they didn't use their phone if they were around, essentially. So what happened in this case initially in 2018 is Mr. Castellano did partial phone extractions using Celebrate. He handed certain reports to detectives. He didn't give them the full dump. When I entered the case, I went back to CID and said, we need the full extraction. So in 2018, they received partial phone extractions for a number of things. That included the full dump of the CPAP SD card and the full extraction of the TrailCam SD card at the time it was extracted. The Google records, the general Google records of the Gmail accounts that they requested came back, and they were served those in December of 22, December 13th, along with the geofence records, December 13th, 2022. And we reserved all discovery, I think, that day. I think we just said, give them all of it again, because time had passed.
What format did they receive this
So
geofence data
the
information
geofence
in?
data was raw data.
This is right here.
Okay.
The extractions we
But
provided.
did y'all have correlation? I'm sorry, just easier way to do it.
That's fine.
Did y'all have information that correlated these IDs to specific devices?
They did.
That's
They
part
had
of the-
phase 1, 2, and 3.
Alright.
Yes.
The documents we gave you, that's what we got those.
Well,
There were more.
what?
There were several folders and
Right.
documents.
What I have in my hands doesn't give me any correlation as to what
We
this
don't-
information.
We didn't know what it meant, Judge. We still really don't, so. That's why
So,
we got
And-
this motion.
so is there anything my question is there anything anywhere that says that y'all turned over that correlates this device ID, the 211-181-353, to Gary Farris's cell phone?
Yes. There's an unmasking, so it's in 3 phases, and I might need Miss Harris to walk through these.
Y'all gave me this third sheet, but that third sheet, to
So
my
the
view,
sheet that you have, so then there are subscriber information sheets.
right? That's what I have.
And those will have the,
Okay.
the
there is
Google account ID is on the subscriber sheet.
kind of. All right, the sheet that I see turns the Google account ID into a number in some kind of, like when you go too far on your calculator and it doesn't have enough room,
Like
and
a-
it gives you the E.
Oh,
That's what's on the ID that y'all just gave me.
Oh.
That's not an actual number.
oh, no, so that's an Excel spreadsheet, and if you open the field, it's the full number.
Okay.
So,
All right.
You
I
have to
can-
pull the column.
yes, and so each Google subscriber has the Google account ID, and that's the ID on that form. So then you just look at the subscriber form and say, oh, this ID is Addison, this ID is Gary, and that's on the Google subscriber information.
So, all right. So let's. Y'all, at a minimum, are going to have to get an expert to look at this.
Right. And this entire time, we never got a report from the state with any meaning to it. If we would have gotten this 6 months ago, we of course could have gotten an expert. The state wants us to go get it's their case. We're supposed to get an expert to figure out what their evidence means in advance without getting a report from them.
Well, if they knew they were going to introduce it at trial, that would have been helpful. And if it had been done at a deadline, as we discussed in this case multiple times, I get things happen. Now, there's a recent case that was just published last 2 weeks ago from the Court of Appeals, where another court threw out a case based upon failing to disclose within a set deadline, but
And they said
that was
timeliness is not
that
bad faith.
unless there's bad faith, it's not. And
That's the Millen.
no one has suggested that at the moment, and I don't believe that's what's happened. But it is problematic.
Judge, may and I understand the court's hesitancy in this. On September 20th, we provided a drive with every witness and every exhibit, and in Ms. Harris's folder, I knew that her presentation was not finished. So I created extraction reports for the data that she was putting in there, and we reserved them the CDRs and the geofence and the Google returns. We provided them the Celebrate reader for every single cell phone dump. We provided portable cases for Axiom so they could open other digital evidence. We provided avenues in which they can open these things. When it comes to the geofence, Google Maps is essentially what our office uses to open those. We tried to do everything we could in this case to provide, and at every hearing I had mentioned, Ms. Harris is going to do a digital summary of this evidence. We just don't have it together yet because there was a lot of digital evidence. I had mentioned that numerous times. I mentioned that on September 20th again and provided a folder for her as a witness, and the data that she was using, I extracted Ms. Farris's activity into a report. I extracted her entire timeline from her phone from July 2nd to 5th. They had all of that at least by September 20th, but the numbers that were crunched by Ms. Harris when she analyzed, when she looked at those numbers and came and counted the total and counted.
Okay, you can just provide the raw data to the jury and then argue what it means in closing.
And I think that's when we've had the raw data. I understand that the state can list for me all the time. We have got hard drives on hard drive. We have spent ridiculous amount of money on hard drives in this case because the state has continued to inundate us with data that means absolutely nothing to the layperson for the last 5 years. And telling me there's going to be a report, telling me there's going to be a report, I'm going to get you a report, Mr. Weaver. I understand that. We didn't get the report until after the trial began.
It's not a report. It's essentially her presentation to interpret.
Right, and I have to have an expert to refute this information. This is not the kind of thing that an attorney from Jasper, Georgia should know what to do or how to do. I need to get an expert to take this data and analyze it.
If you give them terabytes of raw data and don't tell them what you're going to introduce specifically, how do they know what to look at and how to correlate?
I provided okay.
I mean, show me what you gave them.
No.
Show me the summary that you gave them on the 20th that purported to have this.
It should be in the trial exhibits.
Oh, I don't have that drive.
We can do the homework.
Yeah.
They were reports from Celebrate to narrow down the data, and
Judge, here, I can plug it in. You want to see
it
it?
was her
Yeah,
activity.
if you plug it in, it's going to be in the trial exhibits, Mr. Wright.
I'll just flip through it.
And there's actually, there was 2 major exchanges of electronic evidence. I imagine there were both of them. Let's see which
I
one.
can go to my other example that if this were a civil case and someone was suing Pepsi and they're asking for millions of dollars because someone was in a wreck with the Pepsi truck, and we do a pretrial order that says this is the evidence and this is the evidence and we're not going to have any other evidence, and then middle of the trial new evidence is presented or a new report is presented or everybody goes insane and jumps up and down, and it's just accepted in criminal cases that this happens all the time. And the civil lawyers lose their mind over it because then they can't depose the witnesses about their reports, and there's actually a specific issue on scientific evidence in a pretrial order that says no scientific evidence will be admitted, and I have had a case where I excluded it because it was in violation of the pretrial order.
And Judge, there's
But in a criminal case, we just throw that out the window and don't care. It's okay to make the defense jump through, figuring out what everything means.
It could be too, Judge, that the state legislature cares more about civil defendants than it does criminal defendants.
That could also be. I'm not saying you're wrong there either, Mr. All right, Mr. Focus, what you got?
Judge, I just have the legal argument, but let's go through I know the court wants to see the exhibits.
Well,
I
have the exhibits that were attached to the motion.
I think we have more actually.
Oh yeah, the raw ones. That's what we're talking about.
You're
Yeah,
talking
that
about
was
what did they have
the
from us.
presentation, right, was
Right.
not ready, but
Right.
Y'all care if I just go over and
I
just show them?
provided the data that
That's
was.
not-
I want to stand on my. I want to say.
It's everybody stop and talk one at a
I
time.
am not arguing that the district attorney's office and Megan Franks, especially because everyone knows data comes from her, she has given me all the data. That's not what we're arguing about. They have given us every bit of data, but that report, that's what I'm talking about. The pictures that we're not showing right now that the court has. That's what I'm talking about.
Go back one folder, so that is one folder within one folder.
I've got that part.
Up here.
I know, but I don't want Ms. Frankish to think that's what I'm saying. I know you gave us all this raw data.
Well, we also gave you Celebrate to open the cell phone
Well, you have to give us
extraction.
that anyway.
And we also gave you Axiom portable cases, which Blair did all on her own.
What does that have to do with geofencing?
The geofence you can put in Google Maps. And I didn't know you had any issues with any of this, or I would have helped.
All right, I still don't know what I'm looking for.
Well, no, you guys want to come
Oh,
back
can
here?
I maybe explain what they are? They're, can we plug it in?
The
this is, when we went, they gave us trial exhibits. And you can see it was like, that was on the 20th, the 24th,
Right.
then they gave us one on the 30th. And it's organized by the defendant's name.
Right.
So you go,
Witness.
go to Harris,
Okay.
and then this is what Ms. Ringus is saying that she turned over.
Okay. All right.
Can I see what it is? Because I just want to make sure it's the one I'm looking. Oh, yeah.
Yes, he has it. He showed me the date. It says trial exhibits 9/30/24.
Is that where we exchange all the evidence?
Yes.
Did that twice, too.
We did, and I specifically asked about Ms. Harris's, this exhibit, and she wasn't in town at that time, and it wasn't gonna be available until after she got back. But then we still didn't get it. We didn't get it till after the
She
trial.
came in town and had to work on it because she was out of town for 2 weeks.
Right, but she had 6 years before this to work on.
That's not actually
It
true.
is accurate. This data has been out there for 6 years.
She says she'd been working on it for 6 years.
This one. Plug this in so y'all can see what I'm doing. Oh, you got it unextended. F8. Hey, there you go. All right. I can work on Windows machine. This one document that I just opened has 60,000 data points.
That's CDR. That might be a call detail record.
Oh, I don't know what it is. It's the first one I opened. It said Atlanta something. All right.
Oh, yeah, those are phone records for
Right.
Gary Ferris' cell phone.
Okay. So that one document has 60,000 separate entries. This one has 2,300 entries, and it's meaningless unless you take these two columns and expand them out.
Right, they're by date, I believe.
Well, again, you have to expand that out because it says 6.79E09, which doesn't mean anything again. If you were to print it out, unless you open it up and change the column width. So we're at 60-something thousand and 2,400. This one only has 269. again, until you expand it, it doesn't mean it's almost gibberish when you're looking at it when it's expanded, but it's definitely gibberish when you're looking at it when it's closed. $260. And now, on the other side, another part of all this is, for the most part, y'all agreed to the admissibility of the majority of these records. I don't know that y'all have objected to the raw content of any of this stuff. Is that correct, Mr. Weaver?
That's correct.
This document is 116 pages. That's fairly reasonable. I had a civil case where somebody introduced a digital photo, and then the attorney on the other side opened up the metadata in the file and was able to show that the document had been edited in the middle after it was taken. Anyway, so I mean,
Judge, typically, to that point, I don't, if I expand the fields, it asks me to save the document that way, and if it's a certified record, I don't like to modify it.
it's not modifying the document. The problem is, again, unless you I don't know what is problematic.
Particularly when it comes to the cell phone, the call detail records, the company's giving you the records they have. We're only interested in, a very small portion of those.
Right.
And so,
But y'all, until y'all tell them what you're going to introduce, they don't know what to be looking at. Out of, okay, here's another one. This one's got 18,000 entries.
I imagine when you reduce that by dates, it's a lot.
of course.
Yeah, just we're only looking at certain dates, so if you reduce it by dates, it'll be a lot less than that. We're not looking at all that. We're not trying to.
Right, but they didn't know what you were going to use. So far, I have seen almost 80,000 entries. And so, yes, y'all are limiting it to, I don't know, 150. But unless y'all told them on the front end, hey, we're going to use these 150 at trial, that's why you're supposed to give them scientific reports, which is essentially what she's doing, is taking this raw data and putting it into a report that y'all can digest and present to the jury. Now,
Judge, you want us to argue the law on that, or?
the issue that's going to happen next in these cases is then what, in every case in which y'all do a cell phone dump, and it doesn't matter what my deadline is, because we had multiple deadlines in this case as far as what evidence was going to be presented and when it was going to be turned over. And I know y'all are dealing with what you're given. Okay, I get that. And y'all didn't get it until now. But we've all known this trial was coming up a year ago, was about when we started talking about when we were going to have it. And the alternative is, in retained cases, and more importantly, in appointed cases, Mr. Turchiarelli's office is going to have to give an expert witness, give expert funds on every case that y'all do a cell phone dump, which is every case at the moment, just about. And they're going to have to go through and extract the data and put it in reports to figure out what y'all might possibly do, because y'all don't turn it over to them until mid-trial. So there's no way for them to prepare for it.
Judge, could you go back to the main folders?
This is in the folder with the. I mean, again, here's another.
No, I know. I wanted to pull up something specific.
There's another.
You're in a phone record.
1,200 records in that document.
Can you? Oh.
Oh shoot.
There's a senior research, Michael.
Yep. Work product.
Can you go back to? Oh, sorry.
Well, I'm just pulling up the next one first. There's another 1,300. All right. Keeps wanting me to save that, and I don't want to change anything that I've done to it. All right.
If you could go back to the Harris exhibits, 38 Harris. Like the folder, like come out of this folder and go back, because those are not all exhibits. Those are just the records.
Right.
Okay. So the 5 through 9 is what I pulled for them to specify the that timeline. That's what I pulled from the phone extractions, because the phones are very voluminous. And so I pulled the data that we would be using for this. Essentially, it was timeline. And then the last was a placeholder for her presentation, just said timeline.
Yeah. Nothing's opening on that.
Should just be a Word. It should be a PDF. I don't know why there's. Yeah, it should be similar to that. Yeah. So just certain text
y'all
messages.
use that all throughout the whole trial, and that's the text messages back.
Yes, so the celebrate. So because there were phone dumps, I went through and basically pulled what we were using from the extractions. So they knew what we were using from the phones themselves. Now the records, I didn't pull anything out because those are just certified records, and I
Judge, just look at that. All that is Melody. That's Melody.
Let Ms. Frankish finish. Hold on.
It's fine. I'm done. I just wanted you to see. I kind of wanted to explain what you were looking at.
All right. No,
Because the phone records, there's essentially one Excel spreadsheet we use, which is the incoming and outgoing calls and the times. The rest is stuff that they just send. But I wanted them to know that we would be using the phone records, geofence, and then this specific data from the cell phone extractions.
Did
That's
y'all do
her-
this with both phones?
Both phones?
Yeah.
Do what? I'm sorry. What both phones? What's the question?
1,000
We didn't
people-
have the other phone. The other phone was never found.
Okay.
We just had the one cell phone, but we got the records from the phone that wasn't found, which is how she communicated with Rusty. So we had those call times and lengths from the records, and then we didn't have any other data from that phone. And I pulled, I think that's 2 months worth of her activity.
Right. But your report goes back a year.
It does, and she analyzed, yes, 1 year of her activity. That timeline is everything in her phone. I pulled that separately so that they could look at everything in a timeline format. But then there were other records that narrowed down more important information, like text messages about the credit cards versus debit cards, and then the beach condo text messages. And then I think there was another one. I don't remember what it was.
All right. What do you have on? This is the folder for the Google records.
Yes, and they're divided up by account, and then they're divided up by, I think, like the mail and then the location. Some had locations, some didn't. It's divided up, and then there's like one for photos, like Mr. Farris had Google Photos.
That folder's not gonna open anything.
Those we necessarily didn't use any software to open. Those you can just open and access certain things. But like with Mr. Farris, you can open his location history and then like his photos, and it just shows the file that he saved or backed up to his Google Drive.
There it is.
Well, some of it's duplicative, but the reports that I made, the 20, yeah, when we did the exchange.
is this the case you want to try it on?
Try geofence on? Is that the question?
Geofence data, health app data, stuff that hasn't been vetted yet. I'm not aware that health app data has been utilized in the court anywhere yet.
But it's also just data and records from something.
We don't know how it's collected, where it's gotten from, what the components are that utilize it. Your witness doesn't know all those things. It hasn't been vetted through Daubert.
Judge,
Is this the case you want to try to do it on?
Judge, I think if part of the analysis that we're trying to deal with is there are some things that are original evidence, like these records. And I know the court knows Daubert because you've already had a Daubert hearing on that. And under 702, there's a difference between a Daubert type case where it's scientific or novel type of science. And then we have
Your phone collecting steps and strides, and so I
think it's very
on the scientific evidence side. I'm probably more comfortable with the geolocation issues because it has a range and the circle is like a margin of error type thing,
Right.
and it's, I believe there's cases out there on GPS data. Okay, so the issue, is from my thought at the moment on that is it's more of a them knowing what the information they were given is, and it now being correlated and put in a report that they weren't given access to until recently. All right, and then their ability to respond to that. One, know what they have. One, be able to sort through 100,000 records to anticipate what y'all are going to give them before y'all give it to them when there were deadlines imposed for y'all to give it to them. All right. The issue on I'm not aware of anything, tell me how your phone collecting data is different than your phone collecting data with your steps and your heart rate and your activity and it being able to take information from various sensors that it has that goes up and that it believes you went up and down a flight of stairs. And how that's different than an intoxicator.
Well, in many ways, the Intoxilizer 5000 argument is good for us because the case law is that you don't have to know how it works and the components in that.
But alcohol breath test devices is an acceptable and understood and vetted technology that has been allowed in court for years.
And I think
I'm not aware that health data from your phone has been.
I only know this because I watched portions of them, but it was used in the Karen Reed trial and the Alec Murdoch trial. But I don't know of any in Georgia. I had Miss Harris. She pulled an article about how forensically the activity can be used because we also didn't know.
Bring me a witness that can explain it.
Sure.
I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Well, Judge, I guess to cut to the chase, if the court, we have a legal argument for we don't believe that the report we have is scientific. It's not scientific. She didn't perform.
The collection of the data is scientific.
Well, Judge, I think if you look at Green v. State, 307 Georgia 171 2019 case, in that case, I think that's one of the only cases we have. Judge Matt Proch actually has some.
Yeah, we got a copy.
I do, Judge. And if I can go through this and have the court to look at it.
Yeah.
and the council's got this.
I'm not worried, I mean, I get the time,
I know, Judge, but if I,
you can skip all, I'm not going to exclude it based upon,
I know, but what I'm saying is, Judge, if you look at Green v. State, let me just go to that very quickly.
where's that?
And that is on page
Page 4, all right.
page 4. And in that case, Judge, this is a new area because, you know, we have work product. We have things that we make and present at trial just as the defense does. We gave this to them before opening so they would have it. In many ways, it's just a demonstrative of the original evidence. And I understand the court saying that there should be a report or something like that, but what Ms. Harris is going to do is she summarized the original evidence, phone records, cell phone records, cell site location information, steps, and all that. In Green v. State, it was kept out because actually the state objected and said the defense didn't turn over a scientific report that one of their experts did analyzed in a vehicular homicide type case. And the court in Green said that here the parties in the trial court seem to have been operating under the assumption that a defendant's intention to present any expert testimony required the defendant, in this case Green, to make available or to serve a report summarizing the entirety of the expert's opinion. It goes on to say, however, that is not what Georgia law requires. And then it goes on in there and it actually analyzed where the things that they looked at, the expert looked at and based his opinion on. One, they said, well, maybe it's scientific, and it said the state didn't carry its burden. The court erred by excluding that, saying that it was scientific and they didn't turn over a report. And they looked at things that were done that they looked on. They said the expert formulated his opinion by looking at pictures, video, physically examined both of the vehicles, made measurements, create a three-dimensional map, mathematically calculated the vehicle's speed to construct the accident. And the court said it was therefore based almost entirely upon his own observations and measurements of available evidence, as well as application of established principles of mathematics and physics to the measurements, which did not constitute a scientific test or experiment. And Judge, you actually raised a good issue talking today, and Judge, you have more technology knowledge than we do when it comes to a lot of these cutting edge issues in technology. But in Green, if you look at footnote 10, our court in Georgia said, by contrast, federal rules of criminal procedure require them to give more information and do a summary. Georgia statute does not contain any language encompassing the totality of an expert's testimony. And it goes on to note that it's also distinguished from civil cases, as the court mentioned today, because civil discovery, by contrast, provides more than in criminal cases. And then,
Which is insane.
I understand, Judge, and I understand how the court feels about this. I understand the defense position too, but we want to make sure they got that before opening. We didn't mention any of this in opening.
I'm going to give you another example. All right. I have, I'm going to share too much here. I have a little device on my arm, right, that talks to my phone, that measures my glucose level and gives me feedback to tell me what I should do and shouldn't do. And I sometimes modify my behavior on that. When I went and saw my doctor yesterday afternoon, did she rely on the information in this phone? No. She made me take a blood test. She asked me if I've been using the monitor. She asked me if I've been looking at it. She asked me if I've been following it and changing my behavior and my eating habits based upon the readings and results from it. But she didn't take this as true and accurate. She took 2 vials of blood from me and ran it through the lab, because that is an accurate measure and is not subject to random fluctuations, just like something be admissible in court. Now, another example would be the black box data from your car. But typically, when that information is introduced, there is an expert witness or a reconstructionist who understands the technology inside the car data recorder and testifies as to what that data is, what it comes from, what the sensors are, and how it works. And I have used that. Y'all used that in a vehicular homicide case a few weeks ago, or a few months ago.
In previous trial, yes.
Right, previous trials. So I'm not saying it's, I think there has to be some kind of expert witness to at least attempt to explain it before we can present it to the jury, and we need to do that outside the presence of them. And then what the defense is going to need to do in response to that.
May I approach Judge?
And to that point, Judge, the article Ms. Harris sent me about the iPhone health application forensic perspective, it does talk about, you know, if you have it in your hand, if you have it in your pocket, and all of those variables. And I think that is not only something I'd walk her through, but also right for cross-examination for sure. But those are variables that
But I don't think she knows.
we discussed with.
Based upon my questioning of her, she doesn't know exactly how it does. I don't know that anybody does. There probably is somebody that's cracked it and figured it out and broken it down and knows what the sensors are and what the sensors do. But it still then runs through a proprietary software.
Judge, if,
Oh, sorry.
if I would like the court to just, the one handout that I gave that has issue at the top. If you look at the statutory law, OCGA section 1716.4 and 1716.6, and then decisional law, I've got 5 there. Najarro, N-A-J-A-R-R-O v. State, October 1st, 2024, talks about, I don't think we're in the bad faith, the exclusion. The case that the court talked about, number 2, is State v. Martin. And that was a case that said just untimely failure, it's not bad faith, so we're not there. Murphy's the same thing, we're not there. Green, I think, shows, what Green says is there's 2 hurdles. They have to first show that this type of evidence is applicable to the statute, because the statute that they're going under in their motion is 1716.4a. And 1716.4a only applies to physical or mental examination or scientific tests or experiments. That's not what we have here. And even under that statute, sometimes prosecutors don't understand that if you have an expert that's done a scientific or physical examination of a person or mental examination, even if they didn't do a report, say we were trying to be tricky, we didn't do a report, 1716.4 says the state has to give an oral summary. But that's not what we're under. If you look at the very back of this handout on page 6, Muse v. State, 316 Georgia 639, 2023, it explicitly says that Muse and Darius contend that the state failed to timely provide discovery of evidence of text messages and other data extracted during the phone dump of Muse's cell phone by investigator Watkins. And it goes on to cite that that evidence is actually under 1716.4a3a. And I think what Ms. Harris's evidence comes, it's original evidence, it's phone records, it's data from the companies and things. It's not scientific testing or physical examinations. But in any case, Judge, I think we could probably narrow it down. If the court is saying that you're not going to exclude it, I think the remedy is if they need a continuance even during trial, because that's what they did in that case to get an expert, we can do that. We also they have the PowerPoint presentation. We gave it to them before opening, so they have it over the weekend. We gave it before jeopardy attached, before the jury was sworn. We didn't present, you didn't hear us stand up in opening and say, cell phone record's going to say all this. Judge, we anticipate there were going to be issues, and we want to make sure we try a clean case. And we have worked extremely well together. We have disagreed about a lot of stuff, and you're going to see us get heated at times, but we have met together and turned over all this information. And we gave them the PowerPoint before opening. So they do have it. And they've had stuff for a long time. I think what I hear the court saying is, under the Daubert side, and the other handout I gave you is Daubert, and Judge, if you look at page 3, Daubert, United States v. Barton, 909 F. 3rd, 1323, it's the 11th Circuit case in 2018. it says in Barton, it says, notwithstanding its critical gatekeeping function, the trial court is just that, a gatekeeper. And Rule 702 is a screening procedure, not an opportunity to substitute the trial court's judgment for that of the jury. In that regard, it's not the role of the district court to make ultimate conclusions as to the persuasiveness of the proffered evidence. It goes on to cite a case, and it says, vigorous cross-examination, presentation of contrary evidence, and careful instruction of the burden of proof are the traditional and appropriate means of attacking shaky but admissible evidence. I will submit to the court, if the court believes as gatekeeper that we haven't reached a certain standard, we understand that. But I ask the court just to consider that if this evidence is only original evidence that's been provided totally to the defense for quite some time, not only that, the state went out of its way to make a PowerPoint and did give them the PowerPoint before opening. A lot of this is going to go to what they can do on cross-examination. And if the court feels like that they need an expert, I just ask the court to, you can give a continuance for, it doesn't take long. I think Ms. Harris could testify that it doesn't take long to do this because they now have the information we're giving them and they can narrow it down. And the remedy would be a slight continuance for them to get their expert, and then we go from there. If the court is particular about a certain number of this evidence that is, you think has not reached the level of scientific acceptability, and you need further evidence on that, please tell us what that is, and we will see if we can do that and present it after the continuance and take it up.
Well, my thought would be we're going to keep going and give the defense, do what they can to try to get someone to help them interpolate the data.
And we will have Ms. Harris available for them if they need help with it.
But and then if we need a continuance at some point, but we're not going to do that right now. We're going to keep going. I definitely need more information on the Apple fitness data.
Sure.
I think the location data, although I don't know that, I think that is a different level and is more of an scientifically acceptable evidence, and that information was specifically provided, although not in a tangible, usable format, nor was it, and y'all going to show me a better, probably give me a hard copy of what your suggested PowerPoint is. Now, as far as there's another issue that I don't think y'all have addressed that I've started thinking about all this, and that is we didn't talk about her phone being searched for her health data in the search warrant process. And I didn't rule on that issue specifically, and I don't know if that's something that needs to be rehashed as well. I'll give y'all a chance to look up some of that, and we'll address some of this other stuff later again. But that may be something we need to look at as well. What I ruled in the search warrant was that catch-all clause basically at the end that says evidence of the murder, and whether or not that's applicable or not, y'all may want to look into. Now another issue kind of is do y'all have an objection to this witness's testimony correlating all of the information from the various sources to present to the jury.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
All right.
That's from, that's, and Judge, just a.
Well, I'm talking about the conversations back, everything that's already been admitted.
The text messages, no, we don't.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Our major thing is the GPS stuff
Right.
that Investigator Harris was talking about, because as the court, while we inquired over and the court did, she doesn't know.
Right.
And I can't cross-examine somebody and be like, hey, what's the rate of error of this? What is the plus or minus in terms of meters here? Because she doesn't know. To get that information, the state would have to put that into somebody to Google.
Well, so but my question was about the remainder of the exhibit, which is the
The text message and stuff.
text messages back and forth, phone calls back and forth.
That's
Basically,
all.
most of that evidence has already been
It's been admitted.
admitted.
Well, it's also
It's
a
a-
preliminary hearing on the number of
Right.
phone calls.
Well, it's a summary. Essentially, it's a summary witness. She's just taking all the stuff that y'all presented. One could argue you could just present that in closing without the need for the witness, but I understand. My concern about that is, how does she know where these sources came from? And did she go back through each one of these data points you're going to go through with her?
Oh, is that a question?
Yeah.
Which portions?
So like,
She went and compared, like, to the raw data. She went back and checked the
right.
latitude, longitude.
So
Yes.
like the. I mean,
As far as like rate of error? That
No.
type of stuff? Oh.
I'm. Y'all don't know what my. Okay. I'm talking about just the back and forth where you have a conversation with Melody and Rusty, and then a
Okay.
conversation
Oh.
2 minutes later from Scott to Melody, and then.
So here's how that worked, right? We have an extraction, and I'm going to go with the number. The last 4 digits of the number 1987 was her personal phone, family phone. Then she had, or I'm sorry, 9029 was the personal phone, family phone. Then we had 1987, which was what everyone's been calling the burner phone. We only had the records from the burner phone, which are just in chronological order, incoming, outgoing, length, and to whom they are to. And then the family phone, the personal phone, 9029 number, we had the extraction plus the records, which overlap in some form or fashion with the call log. So
interspersed in those, you
all
have. I felt like there was like.
So it's in a timeline format.
Y'all have created
So
a timeline.
If she's sometimes she's on both phones, and so what Ms. Harris did is she just went back to the records of the 1987. Her and Rusty made phone calls during these times, on these days, during these times, and then she combined it sort of with her personal phone so that we can kind of get a picture of what Melody was doing during these days.
Also interspersed in your exhibit is cell phone location data from Scott.
So then we show Scott out of the home.
And she has gone through and reviewed all those records.
And then so we had Scott's records and his extractions. And so his records had locations. The ones that came back from Melody, I don't think had locations, but her extraction did. And then obviously in her text message you can tell if she's home or not. So for Scott, his locations are based on the cell tower,
right,
not geofence stuff. So she
But we
mapped
haven't
his
gotten
cell
that-
towers.
was that evidence introduced just through the record previously, but there wasn't any direct testimony about that yet?
We've not heard testimony about it yet.
Okay.
No,
And is
because
that coming?
it would
or is she gonna-
it would be through Lindsay,
Okay.
so she would testify about his location at certain times, and that's what the presentation is for, to like
Right.
visualize.
Right.
He's leaving. I'm trying to think. I mean, essentially, those are all the records. She mainly uses the content from the phone extraction of Ms. Farris.
All right. I guess what I really want to do for right now is stop and give y'all a chance to start trying to track down what y'all are going to try to do to analyze the information y'all have been presented with, and then report to me, you know, Monday what you've been able to do, and then Monday afternoon, and then Tuesday morning, and et cetera, and continuously update me, and I'm going to reserve ruling on all this for now. We probably need to skip to another witness.
Hayes is Monday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just, sorry. We still have more issues.
All right.
We want to check that up in chambers.
Yes.
And we would also
Just,
need-
we approach real quick.
yes.
I'm sure they're not entitled to be there. They're waiving their presence. They're not going to be there, but then we'll probably will have something, another hearing.
Yes, we will be waiting till Monday. We may be filing some motions to exclude or sequestration issues, stuff like
Right.
that.
However you want to do it, Judge, we just need to, we'll take it up Monday morning.
Well, y'all wanna, do we need to delay having the jury report? Hour to hour and a half after lunch?
We'll try to just go ahead and do something.
Are y'all gonna
Judge,
call?
we have-
I expect y'all gonna have to call additional witnesses.
Yes, at least one.
Oh, yes, for that.
Not just the issue we've addressed, but the new
Right.
evidence that y'all have
We
gotten.
have Detective Hayes we can do, but from that point, we don't know.
Well, what I would like, since we've already given the jury instructions, there is the clerk's office can call the jurors individually and tell them, and I probably should have told them to double check the phone, but I didn't because, but we also, if we had a witness that we could start with in the morning, we could then excuse them after lunch and take up the issues after lunch.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Take the issues up after.
And Mr. Fogus was
Bring the
talking.
jury here.
Is there, could we start with a witness that y'all already planned on calling and do that Monday morning, and then do kind of like what we did today, and that is excuse the jury to lunch, and then it's take up whatever issues we need to address at that point,
We would not-
and then figure out how we're going to do that.
We would not be able to finish Detective Hayes,
Right.
but we can start with Detective
Right.
Hayes.
We have jail
Well, he's-
calls.
Oh, yeah, we have jail calls.
We have at least at Collios and jail calls, at least a day's worth. We could do that and stop at any time on that.
Okay.
And
but-
also the interviews.
And the interviews, but we need Hayes with that.
Yeah.
But just,
Well,
we,
I mean, you just need him to.
based on the.
Y'all could play it, and then y'all are going to be able to connect it up, so that's not an issue in terms of really.
Yeah, they're not contesting voluntariness, so we probably, if we need time, but we.
I mean,
the-
you're still going to get to cross-examine them, but if can we play the video without the preliminary testimony?
We have plenty of audio to play. That would take up the whole morning.
Okay.
And we need,
Why don't-
procedurally,
what-
I need to meet with the court on Monday for those documents. The witness is probably not available till Thursday. So but we can plow through until Thursday, most likely. Even if they start, we can take it out of order. But we need to, but they're going to need to be, we're all going to need to be heard on the issue before.
I know.
And Captain Hans is going to be available whenever.
Okay. Then let's
I imagine.
let's kind of plan on Monday to do kind of like what we did today, and let's go till 12:30, 1 o'clock. Excuse the jury, break for an hour and a half, and then
They put it on the
then come back and go through. Y'all are going to have to
If,
determine. We're going to have to deal with how we're going to.
Yes.
logistics.
Right.
Also, if that witness is not available till Thursday, the site visit was also, which Mr. Weaver already told them, so it's also supposed to be Thursday, so I
Right.
don't know, we may have to shuffle the whole thing too.
Well,
She is,
Well, if she's available Thursday, she can be available Friday, and we can still do.
Okay.
do
she
our
is
thing.
available Monday. I don't know if that changed everything, but we do know Monday.
Well, at this point, we may not end ever.
Coming in towards that record.
And we would like to have that witness testify sooner than later.
I know, I understand.
Even if we have to stop at Hayes and go.
Yeah, whatever we need to do to,
But Monday, you plan on having our hearing on it, on that issue?
if y'all are ready to present it, I mean, I would rather do what we did similar to today. If we needed to do it Tuesday, that would be fine too.
We have a witness here.
This may be an evolving situation, so.
Yes, we have a witness locally, and we have a recording the court can
Okay,
hear.
all right, so let's plan on doing those, and, we can talk,
Hands, and then the recording.
Right.
So the court can hear all that we know.
all right, let's plan on doing,
Monday afternoon.
half a day of recordings, and then do,
I'll start Monday with jail calls.
Yeah.
I've got those keyed up.
okay.
I'll have,
We stipulate.
we stipulate them. So we do that Monday morning, start those.
All right. Okay, with all that, until everything else changes, y'all,
And
We
then
can-
depending on what happens on Monday afternoon, I'll look at the issue, the public forum, and also the waiving.
well,
It may not be, it may just do it normally, but. And for the record, the defense does not object to me filing my next pleading under seal.
Okay.
all right, that's fine, just, we'll,
Copies will go, but the original will be sealed.
just
And
do
then-
it, just do an accompanying order, copy them on it, and.
They always get my documents. I
Yeah,
copy them.
the motion and this motion to seal.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then prepare me an order for that, and we will take it up in the afternoon.
That will be coming by email probably Sunday afternoon or evening.
All right. Okay, anything else we need to take up?
Thank you.
All right. We'll be in recess till Monday morning. Someone call the county and tell them to hook.
Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. United and free. Marching with a purpose, we're taking it higher. Fighting through the struggle, igniting the fire. No more silence, we'll make the noise loud. Together in this battle, standing strong and proud. Injustice fades when courage aligns. Rise up together, break the confines. We're the voices that won't be ignored. Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. United and free. So rise up now, it's our time to shine. Together we'll write a new paradigm. You paradigm, you paradigm. Whoa, whoa. We're the voices that won't be ignored. Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. Rise up now, it's our time to shine. United and free. We'll write a new paradigm. United and free. United and free. United and free. system's rigged, man, it's time to break free. Eyes wide open, gotta see what I see. Standing on the front lines, fighting for the truth. Lift the veil of lies, it's time to be the proof. Take a stand, don't you back down. Raise your voice, let's shake the town. We're the voices that won't be ignored. Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. United and free. Marching with a purpose, we're taking it higher. Fighting through the struggle, igniting the fire. No more silence, we'll make the noise loud. Together in this battle, standing strong and proud. Injustice fades when courage aligns. Rise up together, break the confines. We're the voices that won't be ignored. Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. United and free. So rise up now, it's our time to shine. Together we'll write a new paradigm. You paradigm, you paradigm. Whoa, whoa. We're the voices that won't be ignored. Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. Rise up now, it's our time to shine. United and free. We'll write a new paradigm. United and free. United and free. United and free. The system's rigged, man, it's time to break free. Eyes wide